This video is proudly sponsored by Gamersgate. Download games anytime, anywhere. Visit Gamersgate.com.
Welcome to Elder Geeks Elder Speak. Today is Friday, April 6th, 2012. My name is Randy Yasenchak. Once again, in the background, you're going to be seeing more gameplay footage from Project Black Sun. I got a little bit further in the game, and I was actually really psyched about my small amount of progression. But at the same time, I ended up at a, I guess it's the first boss in the game, and it's just whooping my butt. And, you know, of course, I think at the last moment, I almost rage quit. So this is a hardcore side-scrolling shooter, and somebody had asked the question if you can shoot 8 directions in it, and no, you can't. You can only shoot left and right. So I mean, this is the kind of side-scrolling shooter that will separate the men from the other men who actually like hardcore shooters. Anyway, today's going to be a viewer mail day, so unfortunately we're not going to be doing any news. So if you're going to be here tuning in for news, I'm sorry. You'll catch all the news again on Monday. But with me today, I have Mott's with me one more time. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, it's going good. It's going good.
Well done on the spoiler alert. I think everybody seemed to enjoy that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have another one soon enough.
It's got to be a game worthy of a spoiler alert, though.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So I'm just waiting and seeing.
There's not too many games that need spoiling. You know, there's not too many games that can really kind of cover. But
true enough.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, moving into the letters. I actually got quite a few, so this is actually just a small selection of the ones that we got, and I appreciate everybody for sending in letters. Please keep them coming. We'll try to do more of these viewer mail days and see what we can do. This first one's actually from Red Outlander, and Red Outlander, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to edit down your email a little bit because it's very long, and in order for me to read the entire thing and respond to it, that could be 2 shows on its own. So I will. I will trim it down for you and hopefully touch on some of your larger points. Red Outlander actually says, graphics aside, and by the way, this is actually in reference to the graphics versus gameplay question that I kind of posed earlier in the week when that developer came forward saying that the Wii U is not as powerful as the PS3 or the 360. He actually says, graphics aside, there's still a distinct polarized landscape to the generation gap in the games industry. It's easy for the eldest of us from the 8-bit and below to view the past and see it through rose-stained glass windows, is what he was saying, but rose-colored glasses is, I'm sure, what he means. But, you know, to touch on that first point, I think you're right to an extent. There are almost 2 completely different game markets out there. I would actually go and say there's like at least 3 or 4 different types of game markets out there within the video games industry. And I don't want to say it's the hardcore versus the casuals, because that's really not it. Even hardcore gamers enjoy playing casual games, and some casual gamers enjoy hardcore games from once in a while. But I do think that there is a big polarization between the people who actually grew up with, say, NES and before, so NES and Atari and all the other consoles that kind of came out before it, and people who were basically, I'm going to say PlayStation 1 and later. You know? Do you kind of agree with that, Mats?
Yeah, I gotta say I do, and I also want to say that despite this, nostalgia, for me at least, is kind of a 15-minute experience. Nostalgia has the as he says, has the particular quantity or quality of, obscuring the truth a little bit of what things were like, and so you remember them better than they were because you spent so much time with them. So when you now actually go back to something, why I say it's a 15-minute experience is that all of a sudden, all of the things that you wish you could do, that you can do in modern games, are missing. And so, even though you have fond memories of the game, you can't, oftentimes, it depends on how good the game is, obviously, you can't sort of push your way through it. In my experience, at least.
I think that almost even like design-wise and style-wise, we're looking at completely different types of games. I think the reason why I choose the PlayStation era, like the 3D era, is because that's when we really started playing with the idea of games as more cinematic experiences, whereas before games were almost get from point A to B, or even before that, score the highest points that you possibly could. So there was like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and And God, like pretty much every arcade game was almost always about score. Or in the case of arcade games were actually designed with the giving the player a fun 10-minute experience for a quarter, but making it addictive enough that they'll actually want to spend more money on the machine. So the mindset of the game and how we design these games has changed from arcade experience to not just home console experience, but to cinematic home console experience.
I think you could also almost say that, old school games, as it were, had graphics in service to the gameplay and to the challenge of the game, whereas these days graphics are in service to the immersion of the game more than to the gameplay. I mean, for a shooter, it doesn't matter if you're hitting a block or a walking, talking enemy, right? It's basically the same thing. So instead of graphics having this integral part in the gameplay where, in 8-bit days you had to be able to tell the difference between a ledge and a fall, or nothing basically. These days it's more, how many pixels can we push into this texture to make it look real enough to make the immersion factor just that much more prominent.
Yeah, it's you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, it's a difference of games like look at the original Far Cry. There's a perfectly functional game, and I actually had the thought the other day how much I would really love to see that game just touched up graphically. But even if they didn't, it's still a functional game. It's still a really fun game to still pop in and play. And the difference between that and say what we're getting right now isn't that much different.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at a genre like the FPS genre, where not really that much has changed, I don't think you could ever say that an old FPS was mechanically superior to a new one, because everything they've done that's changed in the FPS genre, that stayed in, game after game after game, like recharging health and that kind of stuff, all of that stuff has been tried and true tested to be a better solution. So it's almost
for
like
the sake of immersion, I would say. I mean,
for the sake of immersion, or for the sake of just streamlined gameplay or whatever. I mean, there's an argument for health packs and stuff like that, right?
Right.
But all in all, there are a bunch of updates, and maybe that was a bad example, but there are a bunch of updates to these genres that are better. They're just, I mean, sure, we have our opinions, but the majority of people are going to say that, yeah, that's an improvement.
Yeah, I would say that, but at the same time, I think we are losing some things that people do, kind of like health packs being the big one that you kind of touched on. But moving on with his second and one of his other points that he actually makes is consumers as a whole will only buy the products that are advertised to them. It's hard to buy a product that you don't know exists. In turn, a publisher will only back a product that they know will make money. It's a vicious cycle. It's much easier to market flashy explosions and sexy models than it is to market creative thought. The current revolution in indie games is exactly what we need to break that cycle. And from here, it's easy to spiral down into the rabbit hole of copyright infringement, piracy, morals. As long as we have groups of people that are willing to step out and try new things and make these ideas accessible enough for enjoyment of others, then we're moving in the right direction. I think you make a really good point about consumers only buying what they know kind of exists. And it actually, what you say actually kind of touches on how everybody was really mad at EA. Everybody really seems to be mad at EA this year. Between Knights of the Old Republic, between the Old Republic and the Mass Effect 3 debacle, a lot of people seem to be really mad at EA. But then at the same time, when you say, hey, why don't you just not play EA games? Why don't you just not skip that? A lot of people's responses were because EA makes so many really good games, because they've got their hand kind of in everything. But as I'm looking at things, I can't think of a single game that EA has made that I am sitting down saying, my God, I can't exist as a gamer without playing that game. I mean, is there any must-play games that EA has put out for you, Mats?
I would say Mass Effect before Mass Effect 3 happened.
But aside from Mass Effect, is there any other game that EA has put out that you're just like, I gotta stop everything that I'm doing, and I might even call off work to play?
Battlefield 3. I'm a huge Battlefield player. But I do get your point, and EA is sort of the publisher that releases. They don't really release these kind of innovative interesting games. They released the yes, we know this is going to be good. We know this is a proven formula, and even though it might be a fantastic game, it's not really that interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't. I gotta say, just to drop a little side note in here, I gotta say I do not understand how EA could have been voted the most evil company in America.
That was just honestly, I don't agree with it either. That was just honestly a lot of gamers flooding to their site and voting on it. People were actually saying, I don't see how Walmart beat GameStop.
Exactly.
I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Walmart practically bankrupted almost every single farm and mom and pop grocery store in America. I mean,
not to mention how they treat their workers. So.
Right.
Yeah.
They come in and they, as the big business, they come in with the lower prices because they can afford to sell things at a lower price, knock all the competition out of business, and therefore kind of bankrupt the entire economy of that area, so that everybody that lives in that area has to work for Walmart. And then since they work for Walmart, the only place they can afford to shop is Walmart. If you can't see Walmart as one of the most evil corporations in the United States, then I feel sorry for you. To kind of get back to his earlier point of gamers only play the games that they know about and the games that are advertised, that's a big thing. But here's the kicker. Companies will only advertise what gamers will buy. So it's a give and take kind of thing. I agree with you that the sexy babes and the explosions and shit, yeah, everybody salivates over it, but that doesn't mean we all need to go out and buy those things. So this all kind of reflects on you got to be a more informed kind of consumer. And I'm not saying you, Red Outlander, I'm saying we as a group of gamers need to be more informed about what we buy. And not just instantly buy the sexy babes and the explosions games.
And that's not to say that, awesome graphics have a hidden agenda that way. I mean, I don't think, for example, a game like Heavy Rain could be possible without exceptional graphics. So, yeah.
yeah. I'm just trying to think of other. There has been an uprising in the indie market recently that has made me think that the gaming industry is going to be changing in a positive route in the next 5 years. Between the uprising of like the success of everybody's indie franchises and these Kickstarter campaigns, which, as much as I'm getting a little tired of seeing a new Kickstarter campaign starting like every other day, I'm happy that it's happening. I'm happy that these kinds of games are actually going to be made, so I'm not just going to be playing another first-person shooter or just another cranked out third-person shooter without any thought or soul in the damn thing.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of touches on an email we're going to read in a little bit, but I feel like the way the industry has lately been stagnating is a good thing, because that will push gamers into more indie experiences. If they can't find that experience on the GameStop shelf, they're gonna go to XBLA and PSN and Steam and Gamersgate and Good Old Games and those services, and they're gonna find the smaller indie games and find a new fresh experience there, because they simply can't find it from EA or Activision or THQ or whatever,
It's true.
Yep.
But Red Outlander, thank you very much for the email. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to read your entire email, but I tried to trim it down to the meat and potatoes of your note. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Coming up next is actually an email from... Oh my, I forgot to put his name down. Nick. That's all I'm going to be able to go off of is Nick. Nick actually says... I have some growing concerns with what appears to be a new trend of DLC content known as true ending DLC. Back in 2006, Ubisoft released an epilogue DLC for Prince of Persia, and now it seems several titles are making similar offers to consumers, such as Azura's Wrath and its literal true ending DLC, and possibly Final Fantasy XIII 2 with the quote, story closure DLC, and Mass Effect 3 with its rumored The Truth DLC. Whether or not 13.2 or Mass Effect 3's DLC exists and or requires payment is yet to be confirmed upon writing this email. But with Capcom doing exactly that, one cannot help but wonder if others will follow. My questions are, what are your thoughts on this true ending DLC that Capcom has offered? My thoughts is that, pardon my foul language, but I think it's fucking bullshit. And I don't think that people should be supporting this kind of stuff. Again, I mean, here's a situation where you have an option to just play any other game in the market right now, and there are tons of games out right now. Why support the ones that are requiring these true ending DLCs? Or if they come out with it, don't buy it. I mean, if you don't like it, just don't buy it. It sucks that they screwed you over like that, but that should be reflected in the game's review, in its score. You know, if the game felt like it wasn't a finished product by the end of the game. But from what I understand, most gamers felt very satisfied with the ending of Azora's Wrath, even as it was, that the true ending DLC kind of was hitting people a little blindsided. I think it's crap. I don't think that Capcom could be or should be doing this kind of stuff. They should be marketing it differently. Or I think that a simple change in the name instead of true ending DLC, I think maybe they should call it, I don't know, Epilogue or something like that. Epilogue 1 or the next chapter or something along those lines. But to call it true ending DLC makes it feel like that everybody just wasted all their money in buying the game.
It's like if you go to a bookstore and you buy a book and the salesman rips out the last 4 pages of the book before he sells it to you.
And then says, come back in 2 weeks and I'll sell this to you for $10.
Exactly. What you said is, that's the thing they did with Prince of Persia. They did the epilogue DLC, and it had a couple of new chapters and all new gameplay and stuff like that. Then, yeah, it's good. I don't mind at all. I could even pay for it.
You liked that game. You liked that Prince of Persia game, didn't you?
Yes, and I liked the original ending, and I liked the ending after that even more.
So if you didn't buy the second ending to it, would have you felt like your experience was satisfactory?
Oh hell yeah!
Okay.
I think I reviewed that game, and I definitely gave it a worth buying. So
okay.
It's what Mass Effect 3 is doing. That's obviously going to be free, or else BioWare's just going to go under in shitstorm.
It is free. They announced that yesterday.
Yeah, and that seems like more of a response to the hatred. You could use the whole indoctrination theory as much as you want, but it seems like it's a response to all the negative feedback, and that's why they're coming out now and saying, "Hey, relax, guys, we're gonna fix this, and it's gonna be free." And honestly, I mean, if you fucked up, I'm not fine with them fucking up the way they did, but I'm at least glad they're fixing it. So. But just like you said, the whole thing with calling it a true ending and sort of holding out the last part of the game so you can charge money for it, that is fucking bullshit, and that should stop immediately.
Yeah, I think any time when they take a chunk of the game out and then sell it later, I think it's a really poor business practice. But it drives me crazy. I know why they do it. I know the rationale behind it. I understand that monetarily it makes more sense for them to develop it that way and then pull a segment out, or to develop it simultaneously, because then they save money and cost. But at the same time, as a consumer, I don't care if it saves them more money or anything like that. Don't let us know that you're doing that at the same time. Sell it, let everybody think that you developed it afterwards, or hell, develop it afterwards. I understand, like I said, I understand why they do it from a monetary point of view. But do you really think that I'm having any pity at all for a company the size of EA or Ubisoft or Activision because they want to save, a couple of bucks during a development of a video game? These companies are leaking money, and I mean they've got so much cash it's not even funny. So I have no sympathy for them whatsoever if they say, well, it's going to cost us more money, or we might have to hire some designers for 3 more months. I don't care. Go cry to somebody else. Don't cry to the consumers who are having a hard time paying their bills and buying groceries.
Also, if the writers of the game are unhappy with the ending, wish they had more time to write a better ending or whatever, do what they did in the olden days for PC. Make an expansion, add some gameplay, add some new interesting environments. Do something with it. Don't just, add another cinematic or whatever it's going to be,
See, I think you make a really good point, dude. I think we need to get back to the bigger idea of expansion packs.
Yeah.
I know that Rockstar was saying that they were never going to be doing an expansion or a DLC as big as Undead Nightmare ever again, but that just makes me really sad because Undead Nightmare was awesome. We need these half game sized DLCs, these half game sized expansion packs again. Because otherwise, if it's just another chapter or just another little extra tidbits, I do without DLC. The amount of DLC that I purchase is criminally small.
These expansions, I mean, you could probably charge 20 to 30 bucks for it, and it'll be so much cheaper to make than the original game, because you already have a bunch of assets, you already have all your guys lined up, you don't have to do any HR, you don't even have to do that much marketing, since the game is already out there in millions of hands, most likely.
And so if you release it within like a year's time, you've got people still interested in the game and buying the game as though it's new 1 year after it's released.
I mean, shit, look at Fallout 3 in New Vegas. They must make a lot of money with that stuff, and it works.
Those are good DLCs. Fallout New Vegas DLCs are great.
Yeah. Even though they're not quite the expansion size, they're not that far from it either. So.
No, they're not far from it at all. Yeah. So there you have it. Thanks for the note, Nick. Really appreciate it. Moving on, this is a note from Matt. Over the last few years, it seems to me that the video game market, specifically with first-person shooters, has become oversaturated. Activision constantly pushing out new Call of Duties every year, EA constantly trying to compete with Activision, sometimes releasing multiple games a year to do this, and other publishers trying to cash in on it. My question to the folks at Elder Geek is this: do you believe this has an adverse or negative effect on the industry and market? Do you think that pushes both the developers and publishers alike to make what is essentially another dime a dozen military first-person shooter with quick-time events and paper-thin plot, as opposed to trying to make something different and somewhat unique in order to stay relevant? Do you also think that this practice could, in the long run, encourage people to lose interest in the genre altogether due to many of the titles being too similar? I think we're already seeing people losing interest in that genre because they've been too similar. And I think that the problem of the oversaturation of first-person shooters is not something that's been happening just over the past couple of years. I would say it has been going on since this entire console's life cycle.
Since Halo 1, I'd say.
Really? You would go back that far?
Yeah, do you remember all the FPSs that started flowing out for consoles since Halo, the first Halo?
Yeah, but after the first Halo, they were pretty decent. It really wasn't until I would say Call of Duty 2 that they just started just cranking them out, and they were just getting more and more generic.
That's not that much later, though.
Call of Duty 2 was the first shooter that appeared on the 360. It was launched a week before the console.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, yeah, I can see that.
I was actually going to say that we're looking back on this console generation. I think people are going to look at this and be like, that was the generation of first-person shooters and DLC, and the resurgence of the fighter. So I think that this entire console generation has been oversaturated with first-person shooters, and I would honestly admit I loved the original Call of Duty. Call of Duty 1 and 2 I think are great shooters. But beyond that, it was just like, really, another one and another one. COD 4, I thought was okay. I think that it was worth the money if you bought it in the time. I
still play that.
Do you really?
Yeah, that's the only Modern Warfare game I like. And not to go all, fucking Battlefield versus Modern Warfare or anything, but since Modern Warfare 2, I really felt like they sort of dumbed it down. And yeah, I don't want to get too much into this, but I feel like all the shooters these days are exactly like Modern Warfare 2 and 3. Yeah,
and we will see a backlash of it soon, despite the sales numbers that these games keep pulling in. I think that you could practically feel it in the air, man. I think people are just losing interest in general with first-person shooters. Unless somebody's going to come forward with something that is just absolutely killer to play, I think people are going to avoid it.
The only way I see the first-person shooter genre surviving beyond the typical... There's going to be one game that's going to rule the market, like Modern Warfare, right? There's always going to be that one game, because look at Counter-Strike. I mean, that's been around for ages now, and it's still one of the most played games on Steam. So there's always going to be that one game, and then there's going to be other games once in a while that go outside the box of the first-person shooter genre, like BioShock, for example. Mm-hmm. And stuff like that that's really unique and has a really good story and has a single player focus, because there's only going to be one really popular multiplayer game. In this case there's probably two with Battlefield and Modern Warfare 3, but I don't see them hashing it out forever.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, come on, let's be honest here. Battlefield and Modern Warfare, they want you to feel competitive about the other one. You know,
exactly.
They make more money if you're feeling like, oh, COD kids suck, or kids who play Battlefield are stupid. You know, they want you to think that way. You know, so knock it off. none of this competition crap anymore. It does no one any good.
I got sick of that before it started.
It's so annoying. But yes, I do think that the market has become oversaturated. It has actually made me lose interest a little bit in the first-person shooter market, to be honest with you. But at the time when first-person shooters were really kind of becoming popular, there was also a bigger selection of other kind of games. The stealth genre was still alive and kicking, and you know, action fun puzzle games were more prevalent too. So I don't know.
Yeah, these days we basically just have Uncharted and Tomb Raider. That's all we have in that.
Yeah. So, Matt, thanks very much for the letter. Final one. I know the show's running a little bit long, but I wanted to get through all these letters real quick. Suicide Machine wrote actually on ElderGeek.com, and this is also in response to the graphics versus gameplay kind of argument, and I have a pretty important kind of note I want to make about this. I'd like to see more games focused on gameplay instead of graphics, especially now when a current console generation is getting close to an end, squishing more power for rendering a graphics becomes almost impossible. Obviously, it's nice to see games rising the bar for graphics from time to time, but it's important to remember, these are all the games, and as games, they must offer something apart from graphics. What matters more for me is that graphics in a game serve their purpose, thus adding to the gaming experience, or do they just look nice? And I'm going to truncate here a little bit. What is also bad is that because people demand games look better, the devs must spend more time working on levels, so they need more employees, but the companies can't afford it, so they make levels more linear. They force events where players have to kill X enemies to proceed, such as kills, and therefore that's what kills the gameplay. Basically, he also apologizes later for not being an English speaker, but his letter, for the most part, basically says gameplay over graphics, and then he dislikes it when the graphics actually kill the gameplay. Like if the graphics are actually too good, like if somebody spends too much time trying to make the game look pretty as opposed to play well. I can't think of any game off the top of my head that did that recently.
No, I don't. I'm kind of against the idea of graphics being too good. I think graphics... It depends on how you want to experience the game. Do you want to insert your own imagination into the game and have your own version of the game, or do you want to experience what the artist wants you to experience? And so in the latter part, I think graphics could never be too good, because that just enhances the ability of the artist to tell a story. But if you want to inject your own imagination, obviously some obscurity is going to be necessary. So
it's also hard to point at a game and say that game sucked because they spent too much time on the graphics and they didn't spend enough time on making the rest of the game, playable. Like they didn't spend as much time on level design, etc., etc. I mean, I'm gonna
go ahead and say that probably Crysis 2 could have been a lot better if they didn't try to push the CryEngine so much.
See, but that's the thing, man. I don't think that Crysis 2 problem was rooted in the fact that they were trying to make it too pretty. I think that Crysis 2's problem was the fact that they tried to cater more to the Modern Warfare audience.
I think that Crysis 2's problem was that they didn't really make that much interesting gameplay. And whether or not that's because of Modern Warfare or not, I think maybe if they took some time out and used more time and resources on the actual gameplay design instead of the graphics, maybe it could have been better. But it's impossible to know, so you do have a good point there.
Yeah, it's almost absolutely impossible to say that. The original Crysis, I think, is a much better game in almost every fashion than Crysis 2. And I was hoping that Crysis 2 would have been a lot more like Crysis 1, because I loved that open field gameplay, that I choose my own route and there were objectives to take if I wanted to kind of thing.
Not to mention that you could accomplish every mission in a billion different ways.
Absolutely. It was completely up to you. There was no narrow path for you to go down. certainly there was a point A and a point B to go, to start from and get to, but how you got to B was almost entirely up to you.
Yeah, and between point A and point B, there would be a bunch of checkpoints and stuff you could avoid, or you could, attack head on. So
right, and that's what I think was one of the big, beautiful things about Crysis, the original one. Beautiful graphics aside, and that's the one thing that we seem to not be focusing on with first-person shooters, which I think is just freaking criminal. But getting back to the whole graphics versus gameplay kind of argument, there was a video I actually saw the other day, and I don't care what you think of me for saying this, but I saw some gameplay footage for The Witcher on the console, on the 360, and it looks bad compared to the PC. However, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad game. I mean, it still looks nice on the 360, and The Witcher 2 is an awesome game, so I think 360 players should still be absolutely psyched for it. There's a shining example where gameplay will probably shine over graphics. It helps that Witcher 2 is one of the best looking games on the market. So, but it also kind of helps that Witcher 2 also happened to be one of the greatest role-playing games of this generation.
I just found the perfect example for this. Battlefield 3 on the consoles versus the PC.
Okay.
What they decided to do with Battlefield 3 is, for the consoles, instead of reducing the graphics, they decided to limit the servers to 24 and 32 players.
Ugh.
Instead of 64.
Oh.
That is directly graphics taking a seat, in front of gameplay.
All right, I'll give you that. That makes sense to me. All right. Yeah. I see what you're talking about now, Suicide Machine. Look at that. I opened up.
Save the day.
Mott saves the day. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that does kind of suck. But would that problem be solved with a new generation of consoles?
Maybe. I don't know. That's the thing with these companies. These companies that decide to make a stellar-looking game is they get so. The engineers, they get so. I don't know, immersed or whatever you want to call it. They get so hoped up in how the graphics are going to look that they're willing to sacrifice so much just to get it looking as nice as possible.
But this also always happens at the end of every console life cycle. Every console life cycle, we've got games that are just absolutely pushing the machine to the limit. It happened last generation too.
I still don't want to believe this is the end. I want another 2 years at least.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. Not to go too far off on the tangent, but I'm tired of what my 360 and my PS3 can do. And I'm not even talking about graphics-wise. I'm happy with the graphics on them, but I want my machines to do more than what they do right now.
I think he also mentioned something to this question. How at some point graphics are going to exceed what the human eye is basically capable of.
It's true.
At some point, how many pixels are you going to be able to detect? How much detail do you really care about? At some point, we're gonna have to stop basically focusing on graphics, and maybe we'll change it into how we deliver the graphics. Maybe it'll be 3D, maybe it'll be holographic, who knows, right? But at some point we're gonna have to stop caring about the graphics, because there's no point in making graphics for something we can't see anyway. So yeah,
I kind of agree, but then there will always be the people that will say that, oh, I can totally see the difference between 4x anti-aliasing and 8x anti-aliasing, or for example, for the longest time we always thought that the human eye couldn't see past 30 frames per second, and then now people are like, well, now you can't see faster than 60 frames, and who knows, maybe people are going to benchmark their games at 120 frames a second or something like that. We will see that in our lifetime for sure.
Yep.
But that being said, I think universally, I think everybody is basically agreeing that they would rather have a solid gameplay experience over shiny graphics. However, I will still always be the guy who wants to see the finest graphics possible. And it's not even a reflection of the gameplay. It's more of a reflection on technology itself, and not necessarily on games. You know what I'm saying?
It's almost like you and I are more tech geeks than game geeks.
Yeah, I would say I'm both, actually. Yeah. But I love that. I love to see what these machines can do. Like that scratches a nerdy itch deep within inside my brain that sometimes just standard gameplay can't cure. A lot of
Exactly,
times,
I mean-
like when here's an awesome example of that. When I get a brand new video card for my computer, the first thing I do is I load up like as many possible games as I can to see how much better they'll look. I won't even be interested in playing half of them. I just want to see how awesome they'll look.
Yeah, I know. Speaking as someone who religiously builds their own setups and rigs, whenever I get a new anything or build a new rig for, not even just for myself, when I build something for my friends or my family, I always run them through, a benchmark graphical test or, everything, just to get all the numbers up and see if the numbers are better than the last numbers I got.
And you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I happened to install Crysis 2 on your machine just to see how it looked.
It's basically building a PC is like an RPG for me. I just want to get those better stats.
Right.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. That doesn't make us. I mean, I guess it does kind of make us graphics whores, but I don't think you or I will ever sit down and be like, I don't care how crappy the gameplay experience is. I want prettier graphics.
I mean, shit, look at the game you're going to show in the background of this. That doesn't have particularly... I mean, it has nice-looking graphics, but it has less sophisticated style, if you want to call it that, than Crysis 2 or whatever you want to...
Oh, yeah, totally.
Whichever game you want to... And that looks great. I mean, I have no problems with the graphics of that game. I would still love to play that game. I'd probably get my ass kicked, but still, I'd love to play that game.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And I got to admit, like, I am enjoying all the sprites and everything that he's done for this game. Like, all the enemies, I think, look fantastic. I think the environments look pretty okay. But I honestly think that the worst sprites in the entire game are the main character's sprites. He looks cool when he's shooting, but when he's standing still and running, I think he looks a little bit like a dingus. But that's that. You would think that the main character he would just make look fantastic out of the rest of them, but it seems as though the main character is the least focused of the sprites that he's built for it.
Maybe it's supposed to humble you.
Maybe it is, but it is a hard game. So thanks everybody for listening in. That's actually going to wrap it up for this week. Enjoy your Easter weekend. It looks like it's going to be pretty much nice weather everywhere that I'm going to be around. Sorry, I can't change the weather worldwide. Mats, what about you? Are you gonna be even seeing the sun this weekend?
Right now I'm looking at half a millimeter of snow. So the sad part is because I'm in the north of Norway, and in the south they have 10 plus Celsius and summer weather. So yeah, and a few weeks ago they even had 18 or 19, which was the hottest ever for that month.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Everybody enjoy your weekends. Let's see let's hear what you're actually playing for the weekend. If you're undecided what you're gonna play, I'll just I'll say some names of video games that automatically make people reinstall them on their machines. Let's see, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Mountain Blade Warband, Deus Ex. What are some other must-play games once you hear the title?
I would even say, even though I haven't played it, The Witcher 1 and 2.
The Witcher,
yeah.
Witcher 1 and 2, and for let's see, console players out there. God, I don't know. Uncharted 2. Dude, I really wanted to play that one the other day. And Gears of War 2, not 3, 2. I think 2's the best one out of the trilogy.
That should do it.
All right, get to playing, everybody. Thanks for the emails, everyone. We'll do another viewer mail show again soon. If you have any questions or if you have any topics that you would like for us to cover on the show, please send an email to info@elder-geek.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Be sure to hit us up on elder-geek.com. And this is also tossing it out there. We're looking for a few more writers for the site, but specifically, I'm looking for somebody to be a comics writer for the site. And if you're interested, please apply. Send an email again to info@elder-geek.com. Resume, 2 writing samples. That's the typical request for everybody. If you don't have those things, I'm sorry, I can't honor your request. But resume, 2 writing samples, and I would love to bring on a comics writer for the staff. What do you think, Mats?
Maybe you should mention the pay scale.
The pay. I'll mention the pay scale in email. Wine, bitch. That about does it for me and Montz. Talk to you all on Monday.